and that the state would be obligated to purchase that gas at a fixed rate and then resell it. Okay, that's what they did over 30 years. They enter into the contract pursuant to the statute. Okay. It goes to the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission. It gets approved. The utilities that have to implement the contract decided that they didn't like the contract, and maybe for some valid reasons. I'm not trying to pick sides on this, but they decided they didn't like the contract. So they went to the Court of Appeals. The Court of Appeals said no contract. Now, it's on they petitioned to transfer to the Indiana Supreme Court, right? If there is a contract, there is very little, if anything. There's nothing that the state can do because of different reasons. We've got the Constitution saying you can't do it, and by state statute it says if the authority enters into a contract, the state covenants and agrees for the benefit of the parties to the contract, as well as any entity that provides financing to a party to the contract, that the state will not take or permit any action that would impair the contract or otherwise limit, alter, or impair the ability of authority to satisfy its contractual obligations. That is not a great provision to have in your law, but it's there. Okay? And what that means is that a deal is a deal. When you enter into the contract, you can't have the government come around and try to change it after it's entered into, and the company invests millions of dollars, you have all this stuff going on. The parties recognize that, and the bill coming out of the Senate said, if this court says there's a contract, it's over. There's nothing you can do. But if there's no contract, then maybe there'd be some kind of IURC review. Okay? And that's the point that I'm confused on. And I'm confused of why everybody is so worked up about the IURC review, because if there is no contract, because the court has said there is no contract to be reviewed. Okay? So if there is no contract, what would have to happen is for the IFA to enter into a new contract. And the IFA said they're not interested in doing that now. Okay? So what was before the House was the Senate bill, and when it came over it said, review the contract. No, if the court says there is no contract, it would be reviewed. Why, I don't understand this, okay? But it says it's going to be reviewed. And it had a whole bunch of consumer protections and different things in there that would be the standards upon review. But, so the coal company guy, Peabody Amendment, if you want to call it that, Matt Hubler introduced an amendment and said, we need I'll put up with a review, I'll have a review, but it's got to be fast and it's got to be quick because of the way this thing works. And he may be thinking about, if we impair that contract, we're going to be sued. All right? So it called for a review, and it was just a lighter review, basically. It came up for a vote. It was a voice vote. We have voice votes all the time on Second Amendment reading. It's just very common. There are more voice votes than recorded votes on those. And the speaker couldn't tell who voted. It was a call for the ayes, aye. Call for the nays, nay. Can't tell. He says, in those situations, it's not some big, crazy procedure, mysterious thing. It was just simply the speaker couldn't tell, and at that point you call for a division, and you ask for those who vote one way to stand up, and they go through and count it. Then they ask for those who voted the other way to stand up, and they go through and count those, and it simply carries the day. It's a very common practice. Nothing undercurrent, nothing mysterious. All right? So what we are really looking at right now is if there's a contract, if you don't like it, we're stuck with it. If you like it, you love it. Okay? I mean, that's where we're at. If there is no contract, we're not going to see another contract to be reviewed. All right? I don't know, and I just keep hearing it's going to kill it, it's not going to kill it, it's going to kill it, not going to kill it. But I think that's where we're at. Gail, I mean, if you've got better info,
No. Did I turn that on or off? Is it on?
It's on.
Okay. The only thing that I would add, there are a couple things, is that the courts could say, there is a contract, but X. We want X done. They could send it back and say they want the IURC to review it.
If there's a contract.
If there's a contract. So that there's other scenarios.
But then but you can't change it. the
No,
review
you
standard
can't.
mid-course.
That's right, you can't change the review standard, but if there's, they could say, we'll send it back with certain stipulations to be reviewed. And that is the scenario, and that's one thing that we have not done in the state legislature that I take issue with all the time, and that is the review on our contracts is for just and reasonable, and it's done with comparatives. There are just and reasonable contracts that have costs in them that are not affordable. Just and reasonable does not mean affordable. Therefore, I have said that we have got to increase what shall I say, the guidelines that we give them to include affordable. And I don't think until we do that, it means a whole lot to go back to IURC. But it can go back. And what I'm going to try to do is to get the word out there that hopefully the courts will